So I did a video earlier about how America is God's kingdom. Well, of course it would be, because it's also, and I'm gonna back this up, because you have to write off a lot of coincidences to call me a conspiracy theory with this one. But I'll show in a minute. But it would be his kingdom if it's the Garden of Eden, and it is. I'll prove it in a minute. Well, it may not be proof to some people, but there's too many coincidences. So the Old Testament in Exodus, when you read it, it's very much like God's dealing with toddlers many times. Me and my sister used to joke about this back in the day, about when she had little ones, toddlers, because they acted a lot like the Israelites. We would, they get mad and they start pulling off their clothes. That happens all the time when they get mad. They get mad at God and they start pulling off their clothes. And yet, I don't think they're toddlers, but that's what it reminds me of reading it. And so every time one of her kids, her toddlers, would get upset and start doing that, we'd be like, look at, they're little Israelites. Because it seemed like, especially with how often God had to constantly tell them, just like you would a child, could you please stop doing this? How many times do I have to tell you this? Okay, so it's all very much like what God's goal is to not get you to just stagnate. Many of the books of the Old Testament, it seemed like there was always some sort of disconnect with Israel and God, because they would just disregard God. We all do, so don't get me wrong about that. But it seemed like that there was never, I don't want to say that there wasn't a true connection, but when they just were like, we disregard God as a king, or they didn't think anything of it, we want a human king. It's like the worst thing to do. You have literally the God over you as king, but they wanted someone they could see. See, they wanted to be lazy. This is why popes were brought in, and bishops and priests and a ton of clergy, because then you're going to listen to them instead of going to the true teacher. So it's really important that if you want to truly understand the biblical God, that you not go to theologians. Don't go to the experts because they went to seminary school. I will guarantee that one 100%, that God would say, no, I don't want you to go to the people that went to seminary school. I don't want you to go to the theologians. They did not learn about me the right way. That was the point to Jesus. Jesus was the connection between you and God. Yeah. Why would you want to go to this is what I don't understand about these holy people. The Pharisees, the priests, the pastors, the bishops, all of them in their hats and robes. What I don't understand is, why would you want to go to seminary school or any of that when God says in the Bible he's the teacher? So why wouldn't you go to him? You don't even have to pay for it. But see, you should learn about the biblical God from those that have walked it. They have not. They've sat in classrooms and learned. I mean, God be like, no, I told you. When I said I was the teacher, what part of that do you not get? And then they say, oh, well, but God wanted some teachers. He wanted very few. And definitely not the ones that went to seminary school. But they work as a perfect in-between person. See, God was trying to get rid of the in-between person like Moses. That's where he eventually wanted it to go, which is the point to Jesus, because then everybody is like Moses. You don't need one person that you're waiting on. But you have to be somewhat spiritually mature, not to receive it, but to understand it and follow it. Our pilgrims, they knew God, I would say, probably better than anybody. I would say our pilgrims. The 1776 founders were being helped by God, for sure, because of the seal the pilgrims made with the covenant. And they believed in God, too. They just were at that place where they believed in the Holy Spirit, but from understanding it on an outside viewpoint instead of truly understanding it through the Spirit. If that makes sense. So it's like the story progresses, and as time goes on, that's what God's waiting. God, what our pilgrims did was they said, God, we want you to be our king. So that's like music to God's ears, because nobody was doing it in the Bible. So America is part of the Bible. That's why I said Donald Trump put those books, they put our 3 precious documents in it, because it is the continuing story. It's actually, though, because of Eden, which I'm going to get to in a minute, it brings the whole story full circle too. So I would say our pilgrims were probably because of their strength, it was God that carried them through coming here and putting their life on the line and going through everything they did. When you can have so much faith that this is what you do after just being on a ship that was horribly disgusting, and it wasn't some comfortable ship. The 1776 founders came over in a comfortable way, and they fought. They were fighters. They fought in the revolution. But I mean, these are the first people that came. They made the covenant. It started with them. They wanted to worship God, but they wanted God to be the king over them. That's always what God wanted. So it kind of comes full circle, because that's why America is very important in all this. So if you go up just where it says, see where it says 11, this is from the Bible, Genesis. The name of the first is the Pishon. It is the one that flowed around the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. What did Trump say? You're standing on so much gold, that more gold than any other land has. So, where the gold is, and the gold of that land is good. Bdellium, which is a fragrance that comes from different trees in the forest. It's like a perfume. And onyx stone are there. The name of the second river is, so that the rest of it doesn't matter. So just remember this. The name of the first is Pishon. That is what encompasses the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. That's what encompasses the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. And the gold of that land is good. The gold of that land is good. And as I said, in the bdellium and the onyx stone. This is someone's drawing of what the valley of Gihon, it's the same thing as what I was just reading in the Bible, would look like. So there's only one, that Havilah, the town of Havilah, in America, there's only one town in all of America that's Havilah. At least when I went on MapQuest, and this is where it's at. California. This area, I'm going to zoom in, but it's the Gulf of California here. This is all wooded. It's all just like you would see in the Garden of Eden. But there's more. Miracle Hot Springs. And it's all hills and valleys. And so just keep in mind, this was before, when God placed Adam in the garden, that was before they had the original sin or the fall. So that would have been God's kingdom, correct? Yes. That would have been heaven on earth. Now, clearly, California isn't that way today, but you know what I mean. Some more pictures. And there's a ton of national parks here. Ton. Death Valley, Yosemite, yeah. Just showing some of the area, the trees, the valleys. Onyx. So when Trump says you're standing on liquid gold more than any other country has, and yet it's in Genesis, what I just read, and I just showed you, then you can understand how it eventually all comes full circle to be heaven on earth.